May 7th, 2024. Please join us in a Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Welcome, everybody. Nice to see all these bright, shiny faces. We're going to kick right off with agenda item 3A. And Mr. Rowley, contract with Columbia Care Bay Apartments. Good morning, Mike. Good morning, David. How are you?
Good.
Nice to see you both.
You all as well.
So this first contract is for transitional housing for clients. It's 10 units at Bay Apartments, and we've had this contract for about 20 years, and it is a renewal with a price increase.
Okay, Mr. Chair, move to approve and sign contract with Columbia Care for Bay Apartments.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Where are Bay Apartments?
They're on Anderson.
And, okay, I know
Tuesday.
what you're talking about.
This is part of our continuum of care housing. You know, we have different levels of care. This is sort of our transitional housing. It's really helped people that have had some success in it. We get people from shelters, homeless, and this is sort of the next step. There's a case manager assigned to it, as well as the units themselves, with the goal that people will get enough stability that they'll be gradually able to be integrated into regular housing as they move forward and get healthier.
Okay. How much increase are we looking at on this iteration of the contract, this renewal?
It's a variable amount, so we have a not to exceed, and maybe David can explain how that works.
The personnel cost is about 5% increase, which is about the minimum. The rent portion, so there's two portions of the contract. The rent portion is going to be a little bit more variable. And I think in the long term, it's actually going to be less expensive for us. So we've changed how we've done the rent portion, be flexible so that we can capture additional HUD federal funds as well. And so we might have a slight increase this next year, but the following years we should actually have a decrease in the funding needed to support the rental portion. So that's why it's a little bit different. We were not capturing the HUD funding because of some of the ways that we were doing the rent historically. So we're making some of those corrections, and it should actually be more efficient moving forward.
Good for you.
Okay.
You might note too, the tenant contributes 40%.
That's one of the changes, yes, so that's an increase. We do have to follow the law, so some tenants, it will be more a gradual point to get to that 40%, but new tenants will pay the 40% of their income, which is a little bit above the HUD rate. The HUD rate's 30%, but that's again helping us make it and trying to give people a sort of more realistic perspective about what real rents are. As you all know, rents are extremely expensive right now in our community. And so we want people to have some real sense of what those rents actually are.
And certainly it's never a bad thing for these people seeking this transition to have a little bit more skin in the game.
Exactly.
Okay, very good. Any other discussion on the board? Any discussion in the room? Nancy?
My name is Nancy Brown. I live in Coos Bay. So I was just wondering, because I know they were having problems with that specific apartment complex about like the homeless getting in there and tearing up walls and plugging up the toilets and doing all that. That's the one there by the Coos Bay Police Department, right? Isn't that the apartment that we're talking about?
No.
That's not the right one?
No, this one is by the old Blossom Gulch School.
Oh, okay.
Right around the corner from there.
Okay, I thought it was that other one, because I know there's been a lot of stuff about the homeless breaking into it and plugging up stuff, but that's not the right one. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
This housing project has been very successful. There have been very minimal issues.
Okay, good. Any other Jim?
Jim Bennett Bandit, forgive me, but this gentleman is here for every meeting, and we're always giving more money. And Coos Health and Welfare, as Jim calls it, and our homeless efforts have more money in the coffers than we do. You know, I would be curious as to what percentage of these people that we're paying to accommodate are from Coos County. I think most of them aren't from here, wouldn't you concur?
I don't have a metric on that. I don't know. Maybe
They're just
that's true.
importing more love into our community and ensuring that we won't have an abundant free market in Coos Bay, which should be rocking and doing great. Our biggest problem in Coos Bay should be people being able to afford the housing. But instead, they'll continue to do everything they can to bring us in decline. I saw the transportation plan. It's funny how transportation plans don't have to do with transportation. Next, they'll do big, wide bike lanes, which is the way you always know that they have heisted their leg on your community, and they'll make it so it takes an hour to get through Coos and, you know, do all traffic calming, traffic diets. I call them business diets, which their business diets are already working really good. You see all the for rent signs and everything all over the place. Just more of the same. I just look forward to the day that we unhitch our wagon from the people that are behind everything that's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. So, you know,
Can you give us a, well, go ahead, excuse me.
well, I just felt compelled to reiterate that, you know, none of these funds are coming out of the Coos County general fund or any of our tax base directly. It's these are federal and state grants and funds that are being utilized, and I don't think that. I mean, where can you just speak? What? Oh, just one second, Tom. You speak momentarily to what's a primary scenario where someone is inducted into this housing.
So there are several options. I mean, I would say that for the most part, everybody that is in those units are residents of Coos County. Most of them have been here for years and years. Most of them have Oregon Health Plan through Advanced Health, which means they've established the residential criteria for being in our community. So these are not folks that are, these are folks that are known to us. A typical scenario would be somebody that ends up evicted from another place. They have a mental illness, they're hearing voices, they're creating disturbance, they get evicted, they go to the hospital stabilizes them, they can't return to their housing, and we put them at the Bay Apartments. Or we have somebody at a higher level care, like an adult foster home, where they're getting 24-hour care, they're doing better, they need a transition place, they go to Bay Apartments after they're in their foster home. And again, with the idea being that they'll increase skills and they'll be able to move into regular sorts of apartments. So those are the typical scenarios that we would see.
Okay, so more of a safety net, not a hammock.
Yeah. I mean, the folks that we serve have chronic mental illnesses like schizophrenia, bipolar, you know, major depression, and most of those are very genetic kinds of conditions that people are often have born with some predisposition to. They develop it when they're in their late teens, early 20s, and they're very impactful conditions. They're the same kind of, you know, they're things that create real significant issues for people to live successfully without some support treatment. So.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you. Tom, did you want to, Tom?
I just wanted to comment on these funds.
Name?
My name's Tom Brown, Coos Bay. These funds that we're always getting back in the form of grants and federal funding, state funding, is just money that they stole from us, because when we send our property tax in, they take what they want and give us back a little minimal amount. So that's how they're governing us. We never have enough money of our own to do anything for our community unless we get it in a form of a grant or some other BS way.
That's accurate, but it's not
Right.
property taxes.
No.
It's income taxes that we're talking about.
Well, I know, but
Yeah.
What if we got to keep all of our property tax?
Well, so, yeah, I mean, the property tax, that's a completely separate issue, and property
but they're all
taxes
taxes.
end up going directly into the general fund, the portion that the county gets to keep. Of course, the special district funds, those are dispersed.
But how much
But-
of that do they keep of our property tax?
Who?
The state?
State doesn't get any of that.
The feds?
None.
None.
None?
That's, no. The
No.
property taxes that are paid in Coos County all stay in Coos County. It goes to two different places, the county general fund and a variety of about 35 different special districts throughout the county.
Them are
That's the only.
mandated?
Well, no, they were voted in place by the people in those districts. So the hospital district, the fire districts, the school districts, those are all the special districts that receive their portions out of those property taxes. But no property tax funds go to the state or the feds. So the funds that we're talking about coming in for this kind of a program, Coos Health and Wellness is entirely funded by those state and federal grant funds, and those do come from our income taxes, but not our property taxes.
Oh,
Yep,
okay.
yep, it's very good to
So it's
under.
still coming from taxes though, right?
Absolutely, from income taxes.
Since our government doesn't make no money, it's all taxes.
Well,
matter
yeah,
what.
I mean, in
Unless it's a
2020, the
grant.
people of Coos County sent the federal government 1040 payments of about $225 million. And in that year, the county received back in grants and operating funds something on the order of around $80 or $85 million. So there's a big disparity between what we pay out in income taxes and what the county gets back to
And
operate.
grants can only be used on certain things that they're,
Specifically for what they're
so
designated
that's how
for.
they're controlling us.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep,
All right, thank you.
thank you. Did you have something else, Commissioner Mayne? Any other discussion in the room? Yes.
I kind of knew what the profile of these people, or what the profiles are. I mean, they're by and large local people that perhaps used to be able to help at the state level. I don't know if and the state has shut down a lot of their mental care facilities, thinking that it's better to have these people near their families and their homes where they can get some care. There's a good and bad to that. One of the bads is that the families aren't often able to take care of themselves, and so this is a place where we can provide for people like that. My concern is that, is there a dollar maximum to the 40% that they must contribute to the rent? I can see that some of these people are probably not high earners, and if they have to pay 40% of that, no matter how much, does that preclude them from receiving the treatment that is provided here?
So there is a rent amount that's capped, the fair market rate, and the fair market rate for a studio in our community is I think it's $815. That's a studio. If you go out in the community, that's a studio. One bedroom is $9, $10, I think, something like that. So it's capped at that, John. So that's the highest rate that somebody could pay is the fair market rate. But most of our folks, they receive about $940 per month. So 40% of that represents a significant portion of their rent, which is, for the average citizen, is also true. You know, most recommendations that people pay about 30% of their income towards rent. In our community, we are very rent burdened. Most people pay between 40 and 50% of their income based on just on their rental costs. And that puts them in a severe deficit when it comes to making their household income, their household budget stretch.
Right.
All right.
Okay, all right. Any other discussion on the motion in the room? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Also, health and wellness contract with Oregon EMDR LLC. What's this one?
This is a training, and we did this several years ago, and it was quite successful. So this is specific training for our therapy and therapists, and it also includes therapists out in the community. So it's not just our staff; it's the entire community that we're training.
This is a treatment that's, our number one condition we treat is trauma for kids and adults. It's either related to childhood sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, or adults that still suffer from some of those things. So trauma is our number one condition. This is the evidence-based treatment for dealing with trauma. Has a success rate that's high, much higher than a lot of other treatments. Trauma is very difficult to treat. Has lingering effects. People don't get over it in their lives. They can either get more impacted by dealing with trauma or less. And so we did this training for our staff about 5 years ago, and most of our staff that were trained 5 years ago have left. So we have really very few people that are trained in this practice, and so that's really our desire here is to get people trained in this practice, which is a significant portion of what we do. And so this is a very respected training and trainer, and it has really good impact on our folks in our community for getting them positive results. It's also open to the community, other providers, not just our staff. So people that are getting to see other providers in the community, mental health providers, also will have access to the same training through their providers. So it really has good benefits. And the funding for this is dedicated funding. So the funding we have in this area is required to be spent in this area. So we have some choice about what exact training we do, but it has to be done in this area. So this meets our contractual requirements. We signed a contract, it's probably been about a year ago, to take this money in and to spend it in these ways. And so this meets that requirement, but it also really helps deliver the training that we need to help people in our communities around trauma.
Okay, I move we approve the contract with Oregon EMDR LLC and authorize Department Head Mike Riley to sign.
A second.
Okay, any discussion on the board?
Nope.
I do note that it's like $1,000 per person, so it's
Very cost effective.
very cost effective.
It's a 50-hour training plus 10 hours of individual consultation. So we're actually getting an extremely good deal.
So our staff is actually deploying this EMDR technique on the clients.
That's correct. Yes.
And is this something that's done with the clients in a number of successive sessions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. A typical amount of treatment is between 10 and 16 sessions. And there are specific techniques that are used in that to deliver a better result than traditional talk therapy would just do by itself.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Right, any discussion in the room? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And 3C, agreements with Charity Smith.
Yeah, these are a moving allowance and a sign-on agreement with Charity Smith, who will be our new brief therapy manager. Gosh, how long has it taken to fill this position?
About 9 months. 10 months.
And unfortunately, we've been kind of through this churning lately, and I think we're up to 10 or more vacancies at this point.
It really is significant.
Yeah.
We are really been unable to fill the vacancies here, and it's actually gotten worse over the last couple of months in particular. So we are sort of going back to the drawing board and looking at some of what we're doing and trying to see, we might have a proposal in the future for you guys to listen to about things that maybe we can do that are different to have some success. But it's really hindering our ability to operate in certain areas because of some of the staffing shortages. I can't say we're alone in that. I am on a workforce committee at the state level, and many community mental health programs are struggling in the same way. Like I said, I don't think we're an outlier. We're in the sort of the norm, but that doesn't help us in the immediate situation about trying to manage our requirements and our mental health services. So, we've been doing sign-on bonuses and relocation for a while, and it seemed to help for a while, but it's not clear in the future if that's gonna be our best approach. So, this is sort of what we've been doing to date, and I think it's been somewhat helpful, but it doesn't seem to be enough helpful to try to recruit folks here. We've been hiring more folks from out of the state because we don't have enough local workers, either in Coos County or Oregon, and hiring people from out of state and having them connect and attach has been difficult, so we've lost a lot of those employees that have been here from other places, a lot from places where the salaries might be lower, Georgia, Texas, Florida, upper New York. We've hired people in there, and I would say we've retained about a third at best of those employees over time.
So you mentioned connectedness in the community or
Yes.
integration. Is that what you see as a primary issue?
It is a struggle, yes. There have been several of our employees who left because of a lack of feeling connected in our community. Yes.
Is there any, not that this is necessarily a role that I endorse at the government level, but I'm wondering if you guys have any kind of program that you've in place to enhance that integration process, get people plugged in with friends and so.
We have talked about that, trying to do that in a more formal way, about trying to have more social kind of connections with our staff and teams, so that there is more sense of connectedness within that. And there are individual situations where that does happen, but a lot of times we get people that are single too, and come to our community, and trying to figure that out is difficult. And a lot of our staff are, it's not easy. We've hired some staff that are minorities in our community, and they see nobody else that looks like them, and so that's been hard. You want to find your people, and if nobody kind of looks like you at all, it creates some problems with connection. I think, how do we, and I can say we can do something as Coos Health and Wellness as much as we have, but it's also a community issue as well. And we see that with our medical community. We have a very diverse medical community that doesn't reflect us locally, right? If you go see your health provider, most of them probably have a different status, minority status, than is our standard here. And yet we need those folks to help deliver the care that we need as well. If we lost all of our minority doctors and foreign doctors, we would have about maybe 30% of our doctors left. How do we make an inviting community here for everybody?
With this sign-on bonus relocation payment, what's the minimum employment time to avoid repayment of this?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years, okay. I didn't see that referenced in here.
Yeah, it's 2 years.
Thank you for that. Okay.
And if they leave before that, then they have a repayment requirement based on how long they've stayed.
So it's prorated?
Yes.
Okay.
And we
all
pay
right.
we pay half up front and half after a year as well. So
All right.
these have been strategies we've been employing to
Mhm.
try to create conditions where people will stay.
Yeah.
But again, it's met with, I would say, partial success at best.
Okay. All right. Any other? Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve a relocation reimbursement agreement and a sign-on bonus agreement between Coos Health and Wellness and Charity Smith, and authorize the board chair to sign. The agreements will become effective at Charity Smith's hire date, scheduled now for May 13th this year.
Okay, second.
Hey, any discussion on the board?
Mr. Chair, you asked my question, which was what are the requirements for longevity for
Mhm.
this?
Yep.
So, I'm good.
Okay. Okay, any discussion in the room? Tim?
Good morning.
Good
Tim
morning.
Pierce, Bandon. It's kind of interesting. I come here fairly often, and I notice that almost every time I come here, the Coos Health and Wellness, or whatever you want to call them, has got their hand out for money. and it says the word approval on here. Did you guys ever disapproved anything, and if so, when?
Yes.
When?
Well, I don't give a date. We
I mean, I've never heard you guys
meetings every other
disapprove
week.
any
I've
of
been here
this.
for 12 years. I can't
And I'm
remember
thinking,
when,
wait a
Tim.
minute. And the other question I have to ask, is giving money to these people constitutional? After all three of you guys raised your right hand and swore to uphold the Constitution. And according to the Fifth Amendment, the last sentence is property, and money is property, cannot be taken without equal and just compensation. How can you compensate people, even if it comes from outside the area, giving it to them? Please explain. You can't, can you?
I'm not a constitutional lawyer.
Well,
and
you don't
neither-
have to be, it's printed so you and I can read it. That was
Neither are
the
you, Tim.
intent.
Yeah, well, it's, I don't even know what to say to that. Okay, any other discussion in the room? Chris?
Chris Castleman from Coos County.
Great t-shirt, Chris.
Thank you.
May the force be with you.
You have a strong Mandalorian count, or whatever it is. Question, because you guys mentioned equity, maybe my word, not yours. But are we attracting employees for Coos Health and Wellness based on skin color or sexual orientation, or is it based on the content of their character and their qualifications for the job?
So the question is addressed to the dais. I'll defer that question. Can you go ahead and respond to that, please?
We are required by law to not discriminate and to not, I mean, so that's, we would have a problem if we were to point out by skin color or anything like that. We're supposed to be qualification blind, and that's what we try to do. In fact, some of our.
You mean qualification intensive?
Right, qualification only.
Yeah.
In fact, some of our applicant process is to remove demographic information, like names and things that would give away, so that we do a screening based, certainly just on the qualifications of an application or a resume.
If I could interject, I think what the dynamic is that we're seeing societally is that a lot of the people going into these kinds of professions are coming from larger urban areas that do have a more diverse kind, people whose skins are different colors. And frankly, I don't care what color your skin is, and I don't think that David and Mike do either. So they're not looking for anything in that regard, as I wouldn't. I think it's just a natural consequence of kind of where where these schools are located, the areas people are coming from. I think that's all we're talking about.
It was just confusing when I was back there and I heard that we were trying to get more people that had skin color that matched the profession.
I don't think that's what he was saying. What he was saying is that when people come from these areas that I just described to this very rural community, and they look around and they don't see a lot of people who maybe look like them or share their interests or whatever.
Because they have a beard.
Whatever it is, I mean,
Yeah.
frankly, I think it's silly to make any estimations based on that, but,
For sure.
it does happen, and so, whatever, if people don't feel comfortable, they don't feel comfortable. That's all he was speaking to,
Okay.
not hiring practices.
Sounds good.
Right, cool, thank you. Any other, yeah, please, yeah, absolutely.
Jim Bennett, Bandon, it occurred to me, my wife, I'm going through a divorce after 38 years. My wife, who has bipolar disorder like millions of people, she kind of went off the rails, and I talked to the osteopath, and they can only, should she go off the rails, and I have to make that horrible phone call like I did once before, and she's designated a 5150, there's only accommodations for her for 3 days. Yet all of these people, most of which aren't from our area, we're gonna make housing for. because I called Coos Health and Wellness, and they can only keep her for 3 days. So, you know, this is,
Jim, I'm sorry, but the discussion is germane to the agenda item, which
I
is not.
understand, but we're making accommodations for these mental health patients.
This is a hiring decision.
No,
This is a
okay,
moving
but I'm
bonus.
speaking, that's well taken, but I'm speaking to Coos Health and Wellness and our accommodations for all of these people that are from outside of our area.
Oh, okay, well, this is a hiring decision for a relocation bonus that, for a position that was advertised locally, and, I mean,
I get it, more money for Coos Health and Wellness, and this gentleman belongs to a state board on this subject, and it's more of the consensus crap that you hear me talking about. I just want us to.
this is a relocation bonus, this is not consensus crap.
Okay.
This is a relocation bonus to.
Well, what kind of decisions do
In-
you make in your state group that you belong to? That's what I'm talking about. And if it's a little bit ancillary, forgive me, but it is more money for Coos Health and Wellness. That's all
Okay.
I'm basically saying.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion in the room? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. Master Forester Lance Morgan, partnership agreement with Wild Rivers Coast Mountain Bicycling Association for Winchester Trails operations and maintenance. Good morning, Lance.
Morgan, Coos County Forester. This is an agreement for trail maintenance. Mostly this is, the work's been done on this agreement with county council and the trails people. It is to do with the county forest. We have the motorcycle trails. So anyway, they want you to approve it so I can sign the agreement.
Okay.
I move the board approve the contract with WRC MVA and authorize our forester to sign the contract and adopt sole source finding.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion?
I think these people have been out working last couple times already this year, bringing the trails back into shape after the winter rains.
On the motorcycle trails, this is motorcycle.
Oh,
trails.
motorcycle, okay, I'm in the wrong one.
Same people are
Oh, I
doing
guess,
this job.
yeah.
What they have been doing though on this is, some of the motorcyclists, some of our units got logged pretty clear this year and they're making their own trails, even though there's a trail right next to it, so they're trying to repair that damage and stop that illegal land use, I guess you'd call it.
But they're out doing both the motorcycle
Yep.
trails and the mountain bike
Yeah,
trails.
the mountain bike trails are all volunteer, this is what they, there's no profit in this, it just kinda covers their costs.
Okay. Any other discussion on the board?
Nope.
In the room? Yes, Phil?
Do you want to stand here, sir?
I'll stand right beside it.
All right. You want, am I to hold you up or something?
Yes. Phil Thompson, Coos Bay.
Hi, Phil.
I couldn't hear mostly of what you guys were saying, but are there any way to see this contract, what it says, or anything?
Yeah, I got a copy if you want.
I would like to have one. Otherwise, I don't know what we're doing. Well, thank you very much, Lance.
Terry can hold that over if you want.
I believe those are sole source findings,
Yep.
and the contract is
Yeah.
available at the board's office.
Okay, any other discussion in the room? Nope, seeing none then, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next up, 3E, chemical purchase, Lance.
Forestry Department budgeted $39,000 in reforestation for chemical purchase. We are requesting the board approve the purchase and payment of future invoice from Wilbur Ellis quoted at $13,746.98, but not to exceed $15,000 in case there are unforeseen fees, taxes, in addition to what we were quoted.
I move we approve purchase of reforestation chemicals from Wilbur Ellis in an amount not to exceed $15,000.
Second.
Any discussion on the board?
Nope.
Any discussion in the room? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, Lance.
Thanks, Lance.
We are, 3F has been pulled, so we're moving on to 3G, declaring equipment number 30033, 162307, 210012, 163027, surplus and approved to auction. Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning, Commissioner. Ladies and gentlemen. I think you said it all. The four vehicles in question, one is a travel vehicle passing the life. One is an undercover vehicle that's used by scent. The repairs have become excessive for its worth. It has 155,000 miles. And the other two are both trucks that were in the dunes. That's pretty hard riding out there. One has over 170 and the other has over 200,000 miles. So unfortunately, they're no longer fit for service and opening to auction one and get some money back from the general fund.
Okay, motion?
Mr. Chair, declare equipment numbers 30033, 162307, 210012, and 163027 as surplus equipment approved to auction.
Second.
Any discussion on the board? Any discussion in the room? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Sale of forfeited arms, number 3H.
Just that, we have, as part of the inventory we go through, we haven't done this in a while. We have 26 firearms from past cases, various past cases that have been forfeited to the sheriff's office. Although we have the option to destroy them, we can also sell them through a licensed FFL auction company, so same as any other firearm sale, and hope to, again, make some money back for the general fund.
Terrible shame to consider destroying a perfectly good firearm.
Agreed.
Do I have a motion?
I move we approve, or grant permission to remove the firearms from our inventory and auction them.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the board?
Nope.
Any discussion in the room? Are these auctioned on guns.com, or do we know where that happens?
I believe it's Wilbur Auctions out of Winston, and it'll be online auctions.
Uh-huh.
I can certainly get you the exact URL later. I'm sorry,
Uh-huh.
I have it on me.
Okay. Well, since it's such a nice, easy local pickup, it's good to keep a finger on that stuff,
Yes, sir.
so to speak, but not on the trigger, unless you intend to kill. Okay, thank you very much. Any discussion in the room?
Tom had his arm.
Oh, Tom?
Oh,
No? Okay. All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Renewal of contract with First Watch Wellness, 3I.
Is that, we've had, last year was the first year we did it, First Watch Wellness is our mental telehealth platform, part of our, it's actually mandated now, not necessarily this company, but our mental health program, wellness program for the deputies, in an attempt to, well, it's a rough field. The field itself loses a lot of people due to burnout, so this is an attempt to mitigate that. So asking to approve and renew the contract for First Watch Wellness, and the Coos County Sheriff's Office allow myself to sign the contract. It is $13,400. It's the same as last year.
Okay, motion?
Move to approve and renew contract with First Watch Wellness. Wow. Let's start over. Move to approve and renew contract with First Watch Wellness, and the Coos County Sheriff's Office allows sheriff to sign authority for the contract.
Second.
Any discussion on the board?
Nope.
Any discussion in the room? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
A 3J, payment of CCSO fuel bill.
Same as every month. It's
Yep.
just at the end of, just requesting, we don't have the exact amount yet, but requesting board to approve spending authority not to exceed $20,000 in order to pay fuel bill for the month of May.
Motion?
I move we approve spending authority not to exceed 20,000 orders for payment of the Coos County Sheriff Office fuel bill for the month of May.
Second.
Any discussion?
I assume this won't carry over to next year. Once we're on a new budget, we won't have to do this anymore.
According to county rules, we do.
Yeah,
His
until,
spending authority needs to be
yeah,
expanded.
we
Yeah.
need to fix
Need
that,
to do
so,
something about that,
yeah,
yeah.
we'll get that fixed.
Thank you.
All right, any discussion in the room? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then we had a late agenda item, 5A, moving in right now since you're already at the table, Sheriff, the Three Rivers Foundation grant agreement.
Yes, thank you. So the Three Rivers Grant gave us $10,000 for operations of search and rescue. It's going to go for some much needed, not just equipment, but other operating expenses. It's timely, for sure. It's
Yeah.
expensive sometimes.
Very good.
So just requesting board approval and for myself to sign it.
Okay, motion.
Move to approve the sheriff to sign the agreement for SAR operations enhancement from Three Rivers Foundation, amount of $10,000.
I second, and can you tell us a little bit about Three Rivers Foundation? I think they deserve a little publicity.
Absolutely. They're super approachable, very community oriented. We actually got a similar grant last year for search and rescue as well. It seems to be a priority of theirs. It's just that we said we need some money, about $10,000 for equipment and operations, just to continue going. We have a pretty robust search and rescue right now, and they just didn't hesitate and gave us $10,000 for operations.
Very good. Any other discussion?
Who funds them?
Hmm?
Who are they? I mean, I don't know.
Three Rivers? Confederated Tribe.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to be sure. Yeah,
Confederate tribes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they deserve credit for this.
Coos Loram Quan Sayusla.
Yep.
That's why they call it Three Rivers.
All right, any discussion in the room? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Have a wonderful day.
I will. You too.
Okay, next up, 3K IT. Request approval to renew annual Mimecast subscription. Here comes Darius with his control panel.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So I'm here this morning to ask approval to renew our subscription and maintenance contract for Mimecast email security. The total amount is $22,470, which pains me that I have to do that to prevent fraud. But every auditor we've encountered, and when they ask about email security, every time I tell them it's Mimecast, that's the end of the discussion. It's well regarded. The total cost is divided between the county proper and Coos Health and Wellness based on the number of employee users.
Right. In the inimitable words of Gordon Ross, former commissioner, Coos County would save over $10 million a year if only everybody would live by the teachings of Jesus.
Amen.
But they're not going to do that, so we have to have Mimecast, unfortunately.
Yeah.
All right. Any? Do I have a motion?
I move we approve the renewal of our Mimecast subscription in an amount of $22,470.
Second.
Right. Any discussion on the board? Any discussion in the room? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Right, next up, 3L, County Council, City of Coquille Water and Backflow Easement for the Public Library. Counselor?
Yes, thank you. This is an easement that came up last month. Obviously, the library is under construction across the parking lot, and this is for a small easement through the parking lot for water features, water infrastructure. It shouldn't impact our use of the parking lot, mostly underground. There will be a little bit of, I think they are going to demolish one of the, what's the word, traffic bumps, so you don't drive into the buildings.
Speed bump?
Yeah, I guess you call it a speed bump, but it's more of
No, it's a,
Parking block.
Parking block.
Thank you, yeah. They're gonna get rid of one parking block. I think that's the extent of the damage to our parking lot.
They're gonna replace it?
No, I don't think.
That's not where Bob parks, is it? Be careful about doing that.
The parking block is in the diagonal spot, not used because of the way the fence is set up, but we could replace it.
Oh, no. I'm teasing Bob. I move that we approve and authorize the chair to sign the water and backflow preventer easement with the city of Coquille.
I second.
Okay, any discussion on the board?
As long as John parks there.
I like my own parking place.
Okay, so, yeah, actually, Mark, could I ask you, do you know about which one we're talking about taking out?
Sure.
Could you speak to that for us, please?
Thank you, Commissioners. I don't know if you do field trips during these, but we could take a look at it. But the parking block is, the one to be taken out is on the diagonal parking space that's painted out, but it's unusable. Maybe a motorcycle could fit in because of where the fence was put up, the security.
Oh, the
fence.
one up at the front then?
One all northeast corner.
Oh, okay, all right, we're not worried about that one. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, thank you very much, Mark, appreciate it. Okay, do we have a motion?
I think I did.
Oh,
You did.
You did move, okay,
Yes.
my apologies. Any discussion in the room? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye. Well, we have Mark here. Can we get an update on the library, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, I'm not wouldn't be the best.
Oh, you're better than any of us.
One thing I can tell you about the library is they're wondering why their water's not run over there yet, and this was a problem. The original plan was to put this is for a backflow preventer for the sprinkler system. So when they feed through the fire department connection, they don't contaminate the water. The plan was to put this in a vault in front of the library. That's the architect's plan. The water table gets pretty high up in here. Also, the equipment they had really would have needed more protection on it to be put underground. I didn't want a new vault in front of the library, so now they're waiting. We realized we need a little land if we wanted to put it on this side of the building, but it will be snugged up against that corner, behind actually where the parking blocks are. So,
Okay.
but I think they were targeting October for completion
All right.
of the library.
Good, thank you. And for the benefit of the room, Mark Denning is the Public Works Director here in Coquille. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, any discussion in the room? Or, no, we voted on that. Yeah, sorry about that. Threw me off there, John. All right, 3M, request of approval for appropriation transfer resolution 2404077B. Counselor?
Yeah, this is a request to transfer 45,000 from 9,900 fund miscellaneous department expenses to contracted services line item for Office of Legal Counsel. Office has had to utilize outside counsel for several months this fiscal year due to previous counsel's departure, other leaves of absence. In addition, we've had a couple of unanticipated cases that have required hiring outside legal counsel specializing in litigation. So that's the issue there. Really, this goes back to the several weeks at the start of the fiscal year where Daniel Greenwald Johnson departed. I think he departed in early to mid-July, and I didn't come in until first part of September. And so, obviously, without county counsel here, contracted services took the brunt of that.
Mr. Chair, move to approve and sign resolution 2404077B.
Second?
Motion and second, any discussion? Any discussion in the room? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
We'll go with
Right.
5B now, since we got Counselor on a roll. Request of approval to addendum to real estate sale agreement. This was a late item. Counselor?
Yeah, this is a small change to the sale agreement that you approved back in April. This is to purchase the 4-H OSU Extension Building in Myrtle Point. This addendum would just change the title company that we'll be working with
Okay.
to T-Core Title.
Thank you. Motion?
Move to approve and sign the addendum with Umpqua Development Corp.
Second?
Okay, motion and second, any discussion? Any in the room? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 3N, letter of support for the Port of Coos Bay. Commissioner Sweet.
Yes, the port has asked the county for a letter of support for their Pacific Coast Intermodal Port project, which is being designed as a state-of-the-art electrified by clean energy, 100% served by rail intermodal terminals. It's a container terminal. It will be the first fully ship-to-rail port facility on the West Coast. thereby providing additional port capacity without a corresponding increase in greenhouse gas emissions. The project will immediately increase West Coast port capacity by 7 to 10% and create approximately 3,000 jobs during construction and 5,000 jobs once completed, making this a uniquely impactful and catalytic economic development infrastructure project.
Okay.
And
Move to approve the letter of support for Port of Coos Bay for the attached letter.
I second that motion.
Okay, motion and a second to open the discussion. I am going to point out an issue that I have with this letter. And the issue is utilizing as part of the justification to support the port what is demonstrably bad science. Greenhouse gas emissions are not a threat. Climate changes incrementally and slowly, and it doesn't have anything to do with mankind's activities. In fact, it has to do with sun cycles and atmospheric planetary movements and a lot of other things, and not human activities at all. The fact of the matter is that volcanoes erupting and emitting their gases into the atmosphere represents a change and an impact on the order of millions of times what mankind's impact is. So, for my part, I would say I am willing to sign a letter in support of the port's project, but not when it includes this language. So, my suggestion would be to table this for a rewrite to extract that language, and then I would be happy to sign it.
In response to that, I think the need for the letter would not allow us to wait.
I'm good. How are you doing?
Okay.
The timing on it. And the second issue is that although we may not agree that
Perfect.
what they're suggesting here is necessary, the people that will be making the decision about this money seem to be
So he
thinking
would
that
not
that's
like to,
important.
but I would like him
And
to, and I've already bought his cap up and
We would
down.
like
So
this, but I think
I
changing this
think
would
I'm going to force him
include it in the
to.
letter, so it would not be, wouldn't be accepted by the people to whom, that must act to make this a reality.
Well, I'm not inclined to ameliorate what I see as absolute truth in order to
Let me ask him,
assuage
and then I will give you
misguided
a call back.
concerns
That's okay.
of another person.
Okay.
I can't really participate in that. So
Okay, I'll give you a call back.
Okay.
Also,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, in the middle of paragraph 4.
Hello.
1, 2, 3. Paragraph 4.
Oh, okay.
Says in addition, the PCIP will use
I
renewable
appreciate
energy
it.
sources to provide green electricity. Are they referring to the offshore wind project? I don't know. But
I think probably referring to Bonneville Power.
Well, it doesn't say, but I have an objection about this whole green electricity thing. It just bothers me all to. It's bothersome.
well, it's bothersome because of the lies that have been told about what actually is green energy.
Yeah, I know.
You know.
If you ask certain bird societies, they think offshore wind is great, even though it kills birds. So you can just grow more birds, but if it's applied to the timber industry, you can't grow more spotted owls.
Mm-hmm.
What the heck?
Right.
It's all in their perception of what they think is green and all.
Okay. So we have some ideas to throw out on this. Is there any discussion in the room? Tom?
Tom Brown, Coos Bay. I was wondering, would this have anything to do with flooding more bottomlands in Inglewood? Or
No.
This has nothing to do with
No.
that, anything of that?
This is clear down in the lower bay, Tom.
Well, what, I know, but I heard something about them needing to flood that in order to turn their ships around or some.
No, that wouldn't make sense because that's not a navigable waterway anyway.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand that.
They say everything pertaining to this would be below the bridge. The turning channel, the channel
Yeah.
deepening.
Nothing about flooding the bottom lands or,
No, no.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Richard? Nice to see you today.
Yes, nice to be here and standing up.
Uh-huh.
Richard Koznitsky, Coos County. And I've lived here since 1973. And I cannot, off the top of my head, enumerate how many projects the Port of Coos Bay has recommended as a way of developing our economic situation here. And none of them seem to be realistic in relation to what we have in Coos County, Coos Bay. This latest project, the ship port, is way out of scale for what we actually have here, plus the need for a major rail line to be, constructed. It will destroy the community that we love to live in. It just will. It'll change the nature of our place, and this won't be the Coos Bay that all of us here really appreciate. Okay. I just want to throw in also the out of scale thing. In Baltimore, we were in that water course, a big giant water course. They managed to knock out a bridge. We're talking about dredging a little channel for one of those ships that will barely fit through. And to feel that nothing would happen here is just foolish. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that the Port of Coos Bay, through many administrations, many different people, and many different projects, have not managed to come up with something of the proper scale for the community and the port that we live in. Okay, so I'm a little, I want to support the port, but I don't think that this project, I don't think it's ever going to happen, and I don't think it's good planning. Okay, so that's my take on it. And one last thing I have to throw in and cannot go unresponded to. Climate change is a result of a lot of different factors. But if you look at the statistics and the actual science, human beings' increase in putting carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is definitely a serious factor in it. And it might be one part of many, but it's very definitely a factor. And you can track the amount of CO2 in the air with these various other changes.
What is the percentage of CO2 in the atmosphere?
Well, I don't know the numbers offhand, right? But it's been
400.
Yeah.
400 ppm.
Okay. I mean, all this work that's been going on about measuring this and tracking the consequences is real science. And it's not the only, there's no gravity. How do you like that? Okay, anyway, I just didn't want that to go unremarked on.
Sure.
It is part of a larger issue, and it doesn't really affect the port. Anyway.
Not really.
Yeah.
This is an issue about which, of course, you and I will disagree, but one thing that is observable in science is that 97% of scientists will agree with whoever funds them.
I think there's a little more integrity in science than that. Over the hundreds of years, where what we consider science has been practiced, the consensuses are reached by virtue of it happening. Like I kibitz about gravity, but we all agree.
I'm not sure that's demonstrable. I prefer the scientific model that that provides repeatable evidence rather than
I think that-
consensus of people who are funded by outside sources.
Who's gonna fund it then, man? You know, I mean, we as a
Well-
society, we're getting way off.
Yeah, it
you
is.
know.
Yeah. Anyway,
Look at
thank
the,
you.
You know, look at this, agreement with the port and have them meet some of our requirements or something.
Yeah, okay. So, is there any other discussion?
Yeah.
Phil has something he wants to say, I'm sorry.
I do too, when he's done.
Okay.
Phil Thompson, Coos Bay. I'd just like to ask you a question. After the Jordan Cove big blow up, lasted all these years and stuff, I want to know, the Port of Coos Bay really is the international Port of Coos Bay, don't it? Isn't it?
Yep.
Well, now, when you write anything legally, you'd have to have the international Port of Coos Bay. And the reason I'm saying this, I saw so much twisted around with the Jordan Cove and language and everything else. I think we should, use the right terms on any of this stuff. I think
Meaning
Margaret
that-
Roberts was the governor when they changed that to the International Port of Coos Bay.
Making the port commissioners a gubernatorial appointment rather than an election of the local people.
Yes, we don't have control of the port anymore.
That's true.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Phil. All right, any other discussion in the room? Jimbo's got something. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'll take my turn.
Okay, all right.
Come on up, James.
Jim Bennett, Bandon. Well, at the expense of being redundant, you can start at the very bottom or you can start at the very top. In order to comprehend what's going on, there's three things that we have to understand. A profound evil at the top of this bureaucratic administrative food chain. UN Agenda 21 Sustainable Development turned Agenda 2030. And if you don't want to spend the time to learn about it, just use the word overreach because they're totally synonymous and interchangeable. And then sustainable development is joined at the hips with the consensus crap, which is the way that everything is being implemented. If you started at the top, climate change, the best available science. Well, it's the best available science in their Rolodex, or as they would call it, their inventory. And as I can forward you, when you see the size of the inventory from the National Policy Consensus Center out of Portland, it's mind-boggling. They've made all of the universities government agencies. They're like satellites. They've weaponized our universities and used this consensus stuff in place of substituting our voice, which is the central part of the whole deal. I know you understand. I'm just pointing it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. All right, any other discussion in the room? Sorry.
Yes. I'm loath to judge everything the port does now and in the future from what has not happened in the past. And this is not a referendum about whether there is global warming or not global warming.
Right.
It's a project that's so large that it's a huge infrastructure project that impacts a big part of the United States. Jim, let's not have, I didn't make any motions or fiddle around or belittle you when you were talking, so you just stop that right now. This is an infrastructure project that reaches beyond our boundaries. And it's so large that it requires governmental help. The government often is involved with infrastructure. They build highways, they build ports, they dredge channels. That's one of the things the government does in conjunction with private industry. And there's a huge private enterprise that's involved with this. This provides us an opportunity to create family wage jobs, which we direly need here in Coos County. Our county is amongst the 8 worst counties in the state in incidence of poverty. And the jobs we have very often are not family wage jobs. These will be. It also would serve to increase the tax base of the county. And you have only to look at, if you can double the tax base, which I don't know what this project does, but the formerly proposed Jordan Cove project very nearly doubled the tax base of the county. And it brought in not very many employees. Brought in not very many people. People cost money. And so we had, with that, an opportunity that we could have doubled our tax base, doubled the county's tax revenue, without having to ask for an increased tax rate. So I think this is an answer to a lot of the problems that we have here in the county. I'm reluctant to, I know the people that will be granting the money for some of the things that the government would do are probably strong advocates of green energy. But I think we're risking giving up a lot of stuff standing on our opinion of whether there is or is not global warming and what type of energy might be used for this. I know in Los Angeles, I go down there a lot. I did while I was working. Always was around the port. And with all the ships and all of the big container cranes and all of the big container moving equipment and all of the trucks coming in, it was a huge contributor to bad air in the LA basin. And I'm pleased that they're trying to do this without that level of fossil fuel usage. So I urge us to vote for this and not get hung up on past successes or non-successes of the port in making our decision or what type of energy might be used. I don't know that how much bearing we have on whether the funding gets here, but I do believe that if the county doesn't support this, that's going to send a signal that's not very good and could, in the end, cost getting this facility here. I don't know that it will or won't, but why risk that?
Okay, good enough. Tom?
Tom Brown, Coos Bay. This seems like the same thing it was for LNG. It's like the bait. You know, they offer you this container slip if you go for LNG. And they're doing it again. If you go for the wind power, we offer you this container slip that, you know, look what happened to LNG. I mean, I don't know. We've got the nicest port between San Francisco and Seattle. Portland's getting rid of a bunch of stuff, blah, blah. It's a good opportunity maybe, but I didn't think just jumping on anything's not gonna solve nothing. I mean, look at these are they gonna replace all these rail lines? There's what, 7 tunnels that gotta be, I mean, that rail line's dilapidated. I mean, for a heavy use, they're gonna have to put in new rail lines all the way through. And there's, what, 7 tunnels, I don't know how many other stuff they'll have to do to fix that rail line. It's a,
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
that
where
rail
the-
line's a joke.
That's where the federal, this is a nationwide infrastructure project.
Is it got something to do with Portland?
No,
Or
it has
whatever?
nothing to do with Portland. Portland's a disaster as far as a terminal port. The Longshore
Yeah.
Union there,
But this just looks like, looks like the same bait as LNG, and then look what happened to Europe and LNG.
I can tell you what
Russia
happened
did.
to LNG.
Yeah.
We're not exporting it out of Coos Bay, we're exporting it out of Houston. Because we don't have a West Coast port to supply LNG to Japan, they're still buying, they're forced to buy LNG from our enemy, Russia. And
China, Russia?
China's using coal.
Oh, that figured.
And they could be using LNG if it were less expensive to get. But when you gotta take it all the way around the tip of South America or through the Panama Canal, it's expensive.
Yeah.
It cost us, and, you know, I have no guarantee that it
I
would
think
have
a lot of that
happened.
had to do with the land corp, all the stuff, the Ways and Means that was pushed, was
It had to
being
do
done.
with the state of Oregon's
With the
vision
port
that
buying up
they
all the
can
property
save the
along the
world.
waterways and getting special tax. I remember all that stuff that was going on back then.
So
But-
I'd like to speak to a point that you made, Tom, and that is to say this, that I've spoken with advocates for the port project who are pretty familiar with the intricacies of it, and maybe not necessarily in support of offshore wind energy, which we're all very opposed to, as I think most people in the room here are. And I haven't been able to identify a corollary where the wind energy project is being used as an incentive
Yeah.
to monetize the port project. So as for me, and I think my compatriots here agree that we favor the port project and we do not favor the offshore wind energy project.
Well, another thing that was concerning about the LNG coming in was all this stuff, the diversion of the tax money being taken away from the county into some special land, I don't know what it was. But it was being diverted away from the county general fund or whatever, where it should have been going.
I can't speak to that.
You know, there was a whole bunch of underhanded stuff going on, and that's why LNG didn't get to come in. As far as,
Okay.
that was my understanding of it all.
Yeah,
One of the reasons for the special, say, agreement was that about 50-some% of all the money that would come in from the LNG was going to go to the schools. But because of state law on equalized funding for schools, every dollar the school gets, the state withholds a dollar. So you enrich the state by that 50-some%. So there was a special agreement made where the schools would benefit for all kinds of different things, from Reedsport down to Port Orford, to increase their funding without increasing their funding, and without the state then benefiting from that.
Yeah.
Then the county got a certain amount, which was pretty good,
Yeah.
more than our 10% for general fund amongst the other taxing districts out there in the North Spit. That's what happened. For this one,
I think, Tom,
this
that-
one is also a multi-billion-dollar ask from the federal government in a grant, form of a grant, if that happens.
It'd be nice to kind of stay ahead of all that kind of stuff that gets everything all messed up.
You wanna trade for a while?
No? Heck, no.
Well, that's what we're trying to do here, and, you know, our state of Oregon permitting process would not allow, what killed the LNG project in my mind was the state was just not gonna permit it because it involved fossil fuels. This is offshore, that has nothing to do with this. That is a bad idea. It's untried. We don't know whether it will work or not. This is just a much larger version of industry moving, or not industry, of transportation facility moving out of Los Angeles where there is no more capacity to, and either by rail or by water, moving to a port that is available, adequate, and can be made into doing this. It's a whole different thing. We had another incident here not too long ago. It kind of almost went unnoticed. There was an outfit, international company, that was doing business in Stockton, California. They didn't like the business atmosphere down there. They didn't like the fact that the ships that were bringing the raw material to their facility had to traverse all the way up San Francisco Bay, all the way up the San Joaquin Channel to Stockton. And here they were able to get it in very quietly. They came up here. They bought the old chrome plant that wasn't ever used or didn't succeed and was sitting there not working. Moved quietly here to Coos Bay. Employed 25 people for a while, then another 25. And for the first time in 30 years, we now have ships that are coming all the way up the Coos Bay Channel to the Upper Bay. Those are smaller ships. They don't.
Because of the bridge.
These are bigger ones, and none of this will go through the railroad bridge or under the highway bridge. All of this container activity will be done in.
I thought we should have had the channel.
In the lower bay.
Why they repaired that old dilapidated bridge, you know, and cut Coos Bay off from any ship traffic
Well,
was beyond me.
You know, I don't know, rail can be important too. I don't make those decisions. A lot of people would not like for the rail doesn't come past the North Spit, but that's for someone else to decide. And this clearly is, if it were to happen, would be a significant opportunity for our port and for our
It'd be
county.
really big, wouldn't it?
Really big.
Couldn't imagine all the money it'd take to do the rails and the roads and.
And that's why it has to be a national project.
I remember back in, what, 87 or 88, when we had the money to make a 4-lane all the way through to I-5 from here.
I don't
And they
remember
started
having
on
that
it.
much money.
I remember they took a whole bunch of property from people in 10 Mile for that project, and then the money got diverted somehow, and then they said they couldn't be done, and.
Yeah, I mean, that was a different scale. This is a project that has national consequences. That was a project that helped us get from here to I-5 20 minutes faster.
Well, it took a bunch of land from a bunch of poor people, 10 Mile.
Well,
Yeah, it didn't
Okay.
happen.
Yeah.
all right, we have a couple more. Richard was first, and then Susan, and then David had something. Okay, I got a bunch, so we'll get to you all.
So, the ship that came in with the ore kind of proves a point that I've been trying to make. That this port, there's still smaller ships on the ocean. And this port would be, without as much crazy development as they're talking about, could be a place for those ships to load and unload. And it would be more within the scale of what we have. You know, because I for years have been saying there should be a seaport, not for these gigantic ships that just took out a bridge, but for ships the size that have been bringing logs in here for the 50 years I've been here. Bringing in ore on a ship of reasonable size. When I first got here, it was not uncommon to see two ships pass each other like like on a car. I think that's the size ship that we should be catering, or trying to get, not these giant crazy things. Anyway,
ocean shipping business, and I don't think we know enough about ocean shipping and the economics of the sizes of ships to be making these decisions. If we were smart enough, we still have ships crossing in the bay. The industry has outgrown the upper part of the port, except for different, certain
Okay,
cargo.
yeah, I mean, I don't have all that knowledge either, but just,
I have a lot of it because I was in that business.
oh, okay.
I
Well, I'd
think
like to
you're
talk
wrong.
to you about it at some point.
Pardon me?
I would like to sit and talk with you about it.
We can talk right here if you want.
at some point.
We got until,
Well, the other thing again is that sense of scale, but I don't know all the arithmetic involved in that, And the size of the ship and what the cost of the cargo, instead of waiting 2 days to get a berth, here you could be in and out in a day. It seems
Right.
important, and that seems an important element to my limited knowledge.
but most of the ocean cargo now is going in containers, and that requires bigger ships to be competitive.
Anyway,
Okay.
I just been looking at this, like I said, project after project, it seemed out of scale.
And so we don't want to look at any more projects, you were saying? No, that's not,
No, I
you're
don't,
not
no,
saying
that's not
that.
what I'm saying. It's
But
just,
that's the consequences of what you're saying.
I would hope the consequences were things of more fitting to the community that I've lived in for 50 years. And all of us,
Okay.
want that to maintain.
Yeah.
Anyway,
All right. Thank you,
I'll
Richard.
keep my mouth shut.
Susan?
Suze Kirkendall, Coos Bay. Just two questions. One of them is, because this letter of recommendation, and I'm perceiving that's all this is.
Yeah.
This is just a Coos County.
Letter of support.
Saying that we would like to see this go forward. Because we don't want to have the wind energy to be that green energy that they're suggesting in this letter, I'm curious what they think it's going to be, because there's not much else. The solar is gonna be, I would think, limited. I mean, they may get some solar, but do you have an idea of what they think that this green energy is gonna be?
We already have a lot of green energy. Most of the energy developed in the Northwest is green, I think.
If it's hydro, I would agree with you.
Well, that's what we get here.
Okay, if that's what it
So
is,
you have that. We don't have to have windmills in the ocean to do this.
that was the perception of, though, the green energy. A lot of people that are true blue green energy people don't even like hydro. I love hydro. I think it is one of the cleanest energy sources that we have ever come up with, and we're better than we were 100 years ago in the 1920s when they were first developing it. My second question is, the letter of support, you mentioned that it could be detrimental, but we don't know how bad. If that letter were not given, is it going to stop this project, or is it just that incentive?
I can't answer that because I don't know. I guess why even risk that?
If I could speak into that for just a moment, I don't think the discussion is whether or not to tender a letter supporting the project. I think that is a given,
Okay.
frankly. I think the only issue is some of the specific language in this letter.
And I would agree.
Yeah,
I
so,
just was curious, if you don't have the time to revamp the,
well, I have a mechanism in mind.
oh,
I just haven't expressed it yet.
well, then I shall sit down. So let me express.
All right. David, you had your hand up?
And I'm a citizen here, I'm not an employee.
Yep.
So, I just, I appreciate your saying that. I
David
have,
Geels.
David Geels, Coos County, Green Acres. I have 3 kids here. I've got 1 grandkid, 1 on the way. And when I hear that there's a potential for, 5,000 sustainable jobs here that actually could pay a living wage for my kids and my grandkids, I can't see cutting off my nose to spite my face about whether there's clean energy, dirty energy, global warming, not global warming. I mean, our opinion in a letter isn't gonna make a bit of difference in terms of really the economic, which is really, as you guys know, and I know, when we are trying to get something done here, if the better we provide a unified voice, the better it's gonna be heard. So the county can choose or not to choose the port, and you know, how much of a weight that actually happens in it, it's probably a pebble among pebbles, honestly. But, you know, to me, to pass up opportunities that have real potential within our community and for our kids and their kids in our area. I mean, my kids are facing what, working at Taco Bell at, you know, $16 an hour, you know, you can't live here for that. So, you know, and the days of logging and fishing, they're done for the most part. I mean, we can get a little bit here, grab, but we need to find other opportunities in our community. And in here right now, what is it? It's either in the service industry, right? Or it's in medical, and that's because our community is aging. So medical, yeah, one of my kids is a nurse, she's doing great. Because why? Because the population here needs that kind of care. But we need something else to bring here, and we've known that for a long time. So I would urge you guys not to cut off our nose in spite of our face. Our face is our nose, right? We know that this is a pebble. It's not gonna make really an impact in terms of that issue, but it may make an issue of whether this actually happens here or not. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Darius?
Thank you. Darius Boudelier, Coos Bay. David said a lot of what I was thinking. I understand your trepidation about some of the language in this, and I'm pretty sure I know what your suggestion is going to be. What I just wanted to remind you, there's very little that the commissioners can do to impact the economy in our area. One of them is to support some of these bigger projects. As you know, we're currently suffering from a lack of a tax revenue to support the services. I've been here for 9 years. We've been cutting and cutting and cutting, and trying to make ends meet. But we really need to increase the tax base, and bringing in a large company with a bunch of employees will increase income taxes, will increase property taxes. It will help work that. I hope you will support this. We as a community don't have a lot of resources to offer. We don't have an I-5 that we can do trucking through, right? But we do have a port. We, for years, relied on timber, and the government's done almost everything it can to make sure that we can't access those resources or access them to the extent that would be helpful. This is something I think could work, and like David said, it's gonna provide a lot of high-paying jobs that will filter through our community. So I think I know where you're going, and I just encourage you guys to try to do this in a timely manner and in some way support this. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Darius. Any other discussion there, Jim?
Jim Bennett Bandon. So some of the language as you go through this should include seeing to it that the jobs are local, because as we know, it's not unlike them to import help from other places, right? Like all the other treasonous acts, like, you know, making OSB, so we shipping shavings to China so that we can buy OSB from them, and you know, stuff like that. So it's important that we do keep the jobs local here. I'm sure you'll include that as you scrutinize it, right?
Well, I don't know if there's a mechanism to incorporate that principle into this letter of support, because that would be that wouldn't be within the purview of the U.S. Department of Transportation, to whom this letter is addressed. That just simply is not in their purview. So while I don't disagree with your point, I don't think that this is the vehicle to utilize for the conveyance of that point or the assertion of it.
You can make an addendum or make it that you're okay contingent on saying, or do whatever you can do. That would obviously be good for the community.
Yeah, but
Now, this round one may not be the time, but.
yeah, US DOT plays no role in that, so I don't think that.
But you get the spirit of what I'm
Yeah.
saying, and when the time is right, you'll impose.
We'll certainly look out for that interest. We totally agree on that. Okay.
Can I say something?
Oh, you certainly can.
Nancy Brown, Coos Bay. So I was just concerned, because like Bob said, I mean, we can all debate about the climate and all that, and I get that. But what Bob said about it, and about it saying specifically about like this green energy thing, is this gonna be a Nancy Pelosi moment to say, you know, you gotta read the bill to see what's in the bill, or whatever, you know, I don't wanna have you guys sign something, and they'll say, oh, well, you guys all, the commissioners agreed about this green energy thing, and then put those stupid windmills in. That's all I'm concerned about. So I'm kinda with you about changing a couple things of the language.
Thank you. All right, any other comments in the room?
I have a suggestion to aid in the policy discussion. I've
Please, Counselor.
read through the letter as we've been sitting here, and I just want to note to the three of you that all of the language about environmental benefits of the project, that's the reference to green energy, which I believe is Bonneville Power, but reference to green energy, the reference to greenhouse gas emissions, all of that is in paragraph 4 of the letter. So I think if you're looking to, I think it would be a simple change of removing that paragraph and approving the rest of the letter.
Which is exactly what I was going to propose
Steve,
in
I have
a
a note
revised
that
motion.
says remove.
I was just pointing it out in case you guys.
Very
have-
good,
have
very
that
good.
idea.
I withdraw my motion so we can revise it.
Okay,
Well, actually, I made the motion, I'll withdraw.
okay,
So,
all right.
I withdraw your
The
motion.
motion and the second have been withdrawn. Can we have a new
The
motion,
new
please?
motion would be that we adopt this letter with the exclusion of paragraph 4.
Very good.
Second.
All right. The motion is to remove paragraph 4, which has all the concerning language in it. Motion and a second. Any discussion on the current motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good.
Mr.
Thank
Chair,
you, gentlemen.
make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Any discussion on the consent calendar?
Nope.
Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Commissioner reports.
Mr. Chair, met with Tyler McCarty. He is the new head of the Coos Forest Protective Association. Had a good meeting with him, and then a couple of days later, went to the annual CFPA meeting. They've done a lot of fire suppression over last year, amazing amount, and they are upgrading some of their equipment and some of their facilities. And they have actually been reaching out to different areas of the state and the United States for fire suppression, which is really interesting because they get lots of varied experience that way. Also went to the Port Abandon new dedication for the new boat ramp. If you haven't seen that, it's right there in the, well, they have a new boat slips to the east, and then there's a couple of restaurants. In behind the restaurants, there's this brand new boat slip. It is amazing. It's really well worth going and having a lunch over there and going and walking down on that thing. It's quite impressive. It isn't your general boat ramp. There is anti-skid treading everywhere. It's impressive. And I've been on a lot of boat ramps over the years. Went to a Motor Point Rotary auction and went a couple of Fridays ago. Last Saturday we went to OCCI dinner fundraiser for them, for the Culinary Institute, and a whole bunch of other stuff, but in reference to time, I'll relinquish and go to Commissioner Sweet.
Can I talk about activities that I've been involved with regarding the public safety levy?
Yeah, I mean, you're an elected official, right? So.
Good. I spent a good deal of time along with the sheriff and the district attorney, visiting with anyone that would listen to us, from Dora to Powers to Bandon to Coos Bay Rotary, Coos Bay Chamber, Republican Party, Democratic Party, to talk about the public safety levy. That's been the emphasis, my emphasis, day and way too often in the middle of the night for the last couple of 3 weeks. I attended a little event for Bandon Dunes. They celebrated the 25th anniversary of their being here in Coos County. Their original plan was to have one 18-hole golf course that would that would appeal to golf purists. Apparently they found a lot more purists than they thought they ever would, and that one course has expanded to 5 18-hole courses, and now 2 3-hole courses, or 3 par 3 courses, one of 13 holes and one of 19 holes. They built them to fit the property that was left over rather than. In the meantime, they've become one of the largest employers in the county. I believe they are the largest property tax payer in the county now. They've been extraordinarily generous. They've just finished building 2 apartment buildings on site on their property in Bandon for employee housing. They bought an old facility down on Bradley Lake, south of Bandon, and converting that to employee housing. They've tried to get a permit to build an employee housing on a parcel of land within the Bandon donut, been stopped by our state's biases against development, I guess. They've added a lot of employment and brought a lot of good attention, I think, to our area. And I know that one of the things they came to us and said, hey, this is old news, but I'm still in awe of it. They came to us and said, if you'd like, we'll add a 6% surcharge to our room rates, and we'd like to donate the $1 million that will generate to public safety.
That was a start.
And that was the start. It's up to $1.5 million now. So that's, sometimes we have a mindset against businesses, but we're very, very fortunate to have Bandon Dunes and Mr. Kaiser here. He's a very, very good supporter of our area, financially and otherwise. Lots of scholarships to kids. So much going on. Anyway, it just it's nice to see success like that. This is where I grew up, and I love it when other people come here and think, boy, this is a neat place you live in. And it really is. And so anyway, had to give a little pitch out for them.
Okay. Very good. I realized real quick I'm gonna speak to a point that was raised in the meeting here, and that has to do with the rail line and the development of the Deepwater Port. And my understanding is that the existing rail line that gets up to Eugene, I think you were right, Tom. I think there are 7 tunnels involved. And my understanding is that the tunnels don't actually need to be rebuilt. What they need is to be notched, because they all have arched entries and so they don't accommodate a double stack container car. But with those notches cut, which is substantially less work than creating a whole new tunnel, that actually can be accommodated, and that the balance of the rail line itself is actually well within the parameters of the project funding to make that effectively. I think what they need to get it to is a 45 mile per hour capable rail line, if I remember that correctly, and that's entirely manageable, because that was a big question I had about it as well. So
That's not what was told to us back then, though.
yeah.
Back when,
So one thing that I've become keenly aware of in this office is the degree to which bad information factors in. You know, so often I encounter people who think that things are a certain way, and often these are thoughts that I believed as well, until I get inside and I can see how it really works in the nuts and bolts and go, okay, what I thought was not right at all. And so this is just one of those things. The other thing that I wanted to speak real quickly to is the public safety levy. There's not much opportunity to speak to it before the election happens. I was asked recently in a public forum what I thought about the levy. And I said this, that I hate it. I do, I hate it. I hate that we have to even consider the idea of imposing or asking the people to impose upon ourselves an additional tax burden in order to support the public safety that we really should be able to support without that. But the fact of the matter is that the mechanisms simply do not exist today for us to be able to do that. I believe that they can exist. I believe that we can restore through some mechanism, and I'm not prepared to speak to that today, but I believe that we can restore the illegal taking of our, or restore the timber revenues that have been illegally taken from us, that would facilitate the proper support of law enforcement in this county. But until we can establish and place those mechanisms, we've got to have some kind of a stopgap in order to preserve the capacity of the jail, the functioning of the sheriff's department as it is, and even beyond what it is right now, because what it is right now is still not really adequate through no fault of the sheriff. This is a function of the limitations that have been thrown at us, in addition to the unfunded mandates that the state has handed down time and time and time again. And you know, these kinds of things, like the unfunded mandates and so many other legal demands that are placed on the county, are, I believe, designed to disempower the county and transfer our power and our local control to Salem and Washington, D.C. I've said this, you know, innumerable times. It's absolutely true. But in the interest of preserving the fabric of our society here in Coos County and the integrity of law enforcement, I do believe that we need to have this levy in place for the next 5 years, which is the term of it, in order to facilitate the real correction that we need, which is the restoration of our lost timber revenues on the ONC lands, the Wagon Road lands, and the State Forest Trust lands. So that's what I have to say about that. I hate it, but I'm going to vote for it for those reasons. And that is, I make that vote and that statement knowing that over these coming years, we as commissioners are going to have to continue to work with people in the community and people outside the community to achieve the ends that are actually going to help us fix the problem at its root, and not up on the top where it's going to hurt everybody. So That's all I have to say.
So, Mr. Chair, I get a lot of questions on Facebook, et cetera, about the levy. Interesting about the levy, some people said, well, it's just gonna go into the general fund. It has to go into general fund. However, it is dedicated to the jail, sheriff, and DA only. And some people had a hard time with that, but that's what it is about. Is it gonna fund bonuses for everybody? No, not at all. This has been over the last couple of weeks, and then I got one yesterday. If you just went to 98 beds, how come you can't keep it that way? Well, we had enough money from the ARP fund, American Recovery Plan, last budget year, which we're still in, 23-24, to authorize the sheriff to go to 98 beds. He just got enough people trained, what was it, last Saturday or 2 Saturdays ago, anyway, to do that. If the levy doesn't pass, if the levy passes, we go to 150. If it doesn't pass, we go back to 48. Because we only had that much money for 1 year, but it took a long time to get people trained. People didn't understand that. If you got money, how come you don't just keep on doing it? Because there isn't any money there. It's gone. We used it up. And that's why we're in bad shape. And the money raised by the levy is still short by about 280, 300,000, which we have a little bit of ARP funds left to supplement, hopefully for that 5-year period. To explain kind of the finances of this whole thing. It's not a fun thing. It's not excess funds at all, like a lot of people I see on the internet going, oh, they're just collecting more money. Well, it's actually short of what would needed to go to 150 beds.
And I appreciate the comments about the general fund, because I've heard this comment that, well, I might vote for it if the money didn't go to the general fund, or if the money just went directly to the sheriff and not to the county treasurer. Well, the fact of the matter is, the treasurer is the mechanism by which funds are dispersed for the operation of the sheriff's department. The sheriff doesn't have his own treasurer. He works with the county treasurer, and the general fund is the financial mechanism by which funds are distributed and allocated. So while I appreciate the spirit and the thought behind that comment about the general fund, it's just based in fallacy. It's not accurate. It doesn't represent an accurate understanding at all. And the funds to support the sheriff's department have to go into the general fund. And I'll say this too, that even with a completely voluntary contribution program, those funds also would have to go into the general fund in order to be distributed to the sheriff. You can have a contractual, an ordinance, or a policy statement that designates exactly how those funds are going to be distributed out of the general fund, but they still have to go into it. That's the only mechanism that we have. So anyway.
Megan has something.
Yeah, Megan, the keeper of coin, wishes to articulate on this topic.
I remember. So just to be clear, the funds from the public safety levy, if it passes, do not go into the general fund.
Well, they are, the sheriff and jail are part, and the DA are part of the general fund.
If the levy passes.
Distinction.
The jail and the
Right.
district attorney get moved from the general fund to the public safety fund, and they will no longer be in the general fund.
That wasn't clear.
In budget, it was clear.
No.
To ensure that.
No.
To ensure that the levy funds are only spent on the jail and the DA. So it is a completely separate fund next fiscal year. This year, those two departments are in the general fund. So So I just
Okay.
wanted to make that
That's an important clarification.
very clear.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you for that. All right. Okay, let's move right into citizen.
Megan and I have been keeping score on who's right on things, and I'm 3-1.
I'm right on this one.
I'm 3 and she's 1 so far.
I have the blue sheet. Phil Thompson.
Phil Thompson, Coos Bay. I was gonna bring up this herbicide deal, but I'm just gonna bring you a little humor rather than go into all this herbicide stuff. We've had it last meeting and Lance ordered some this year, so I'm not saying for it or against it or nothing like this. But I saw in the paper, heard on the radio, I seen it right in this room here, the toxic and the weeds and stuff, you know, what we have in this county. English ivy and holly is one of them. They're two big ones. And what's funny, if you go in Best North Beach County Park, there's a memorial about the size of that. And Doc Stevens, Gordon Ross, and Jack Beebe had it put up. You know what it is, John?
No.
None of you guys know what it is?
No.
It's a big holly tree that they got growing in this thing. Big red berries all over it. The birds in there eating it crap. So this is what people don't understand a lot of it. That we do need some herbicides, we can't live without it. The forest, and if you're an individual and you buy herbicides from the county, you have to go by a class, and it was given by Oregon State University. I went to it twice, and you gotta stick to certain rules and stuff.
Procedures, yeah.
But even though I've used it, I try to use it when the bees and stuff are not, in the spring of the year when the olive berries and everything's blooming. But if you really want to know the bad side of the herbicides, is you go out here and go in all these fields and stuff in the summer and see what you see. There's hardly any bees around where I live. I'm talking about the regular honeybees.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can take you above Powers, some of them old homesteads way back in Eden Valley and stuff. You can walk through there, there's thousands of honeybees because they've never sprayed up there because of the national forest. So the herbicides do hurt the environment, something. But I don't want to go in, I just want to tell you about that memorial. Drive out there and see it, it's right when you go through the gate.
Thanks for that,
Thank you.
Phil. Jim?
Jim Bennett, Bandon. You know, I was invited to speak in Klamath and in San Francisco these last days here, and it's like a miracle. We go to whatever overreaching project is going on in their community, and we fire up our search engine, and we use the name of the project, and we use the word collaboration or consensus report, and bingo, it's like a miracle. A report pops up with acknowledgments of all the stakeholders and public-private partners and NGOs and everything. And to be Captain Obvious, NGOs have no right shaping our policy or our hardscape or our appropriations or anything like that.
Right.
And if any of this stuff, if we put it in the search engine of the Constitution and it comes back no results found, well, what does that tell us? It has no place. This is at the top of the food chain of the funding of some of these warm and fuzzy sounding NGOs and agencies that are driving our bus. You might find this interesting. New Venture Fund is a 501c3 funding and fiscal sponsorship nonprofit that makes grants to left-of-center advocacy and organizing projects and provides incubation. Serves for other left-of-center organizations. The fund focuses primarily on social and environmental change, issuing grants for a variety of projects that include conservation, global health, disaster recovery, education, and the arts. It is the largest 501c3 nonprofit in the network of 5 nonprofits created and managed by Arabella Advisors, a Washington, D.C. based philanthropy consulting company that caters to major foundations and organizations on the political left. A January 2020 profile of Arabella Investors Network by Inside Philanthropy noted that the company handles over $400 million in philanthropic investments and advises on several billion dollars in overall resources. So these warm and fuzzy sounding groups like Wild Rivers and all their warm and fuzzy sounding rhetoric, there always seems to be money for their grant-driven projects. And if they had their way, they'd get rid of the clean energy from the dams. They'd keep continuing to blow up the dams and impose their brand of societal sabotage on our community like they have a history of doing. Anyway, that's about it.
So, Jim,
Yes, sir.
I felt very, very, very disappointed. Some of the major fishing groups off the coast, midwater trawlers, etc., did this offshore wind roadmap. They've been working on it apparently for a year. I didn't know this. They included a whole bunch of environmental groups, Audubon, Road Climate, etc., etc., etc. They included all of the state agencies, etc., Port of Coos Bay, Port of Brookings, etc. What they didn't, and guess what they did? They went to Portland State University and hired consensus folks.
It's always the same.
Who did they leave out?
The public?
Well, they left out the counties who were opposed to this wind. They left out the cities, and they left out the tribes. I was extremely, extremely disappointed they went around us.
Well, they include the tribes when it serves them, right?
Right.
Yeah, but the tribes came out and said they weren't in favor of this wind. So I kind of felt like we got thrown under the bus for some reason. They went around us. Not happy at all.
Completely unconstitutional.
Very
Well,
unhappy.
anyway, there will be an email later in today's business in your inbox that I hope you like. And thank you for making the decisions you made today pursuant to our local sovereignty and success. So thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Chris?
Chris Castleman from Coos County. Appreciate the format of these meetings. I know they're long, but you're setting a standard that's should be replicated throughout the county. Other cities should use this format where you allow some back and forth, and I know it can probably get out of hand if there was every single one of these seats filled, but it's what you're here for. I appreciate that. Just want to address the public safety levy, especially because you guys brought it up. John has mentioned that we're the second lowest taxed county in the state, and he uses the $1.08 figure for that calculation. Based on that $1.08 per thousand assessed, if you're adding a public safety levy of 98 cents, it's about a 91% increase in our tax. It's like almost doubling our property tax. I just hope people understand that. The other issue I had, Bob, you mentioned the comments on social media, and I just wanted to mention a comment that you made on social media. It said, 100% of the levy will be dedicated to the jail and DA's office. The jail capacity will go to 150 beds and several more deputy district attorneys will be added.
Right.
And then you put in caps, no other use, and about 9 exclamation points.
Yep,
And you also had those sentiments today.
exactly.
So I have the language from the ballot measure here, and at the very last sentence on the explanatory statement, Exhibit B, it says, by using levy funds, the previously used general fund money will be available to offset an estimated fiscal year 2024-2025 shortfall of $4 million. $4 million. So you're not really giving people the whole picture. I was in the budget meetings, and I do understand what the treasurer was saying about there's a separate fund, the money goes into it. But as we all know, if you gave me $100 and I used it for something, I can still use $100 for something else. Like, there's an offset.
You only got $100 in the first place.
Well, if bad example. You're not giving the whole picture to people.
I kinda like that. If I get $100, all of a sudden I get 200, so that's cool.
Yeah. Okay. Funny game. So the point is you're not giving people the whole picture. You're actually using the money for the jail and the DA, yes, but that offsets the same amount of money. It offsets $5.7 million into the general fund to be used
No.
to cover the shortfall. It states that
Megan just said that wasn't correct.
Okay, it states it in the ballot measure. You're still trying to mislead the people.
No.
It's annoying
No.
and
No.
It's dishonest. And that's, I think, what the feedback you're getting on social media. So the people aren't stupid, they're not misinformed, they're not uneducated, they're just not taking it. They're not taking the trick and the bait because they understand what's really going on. Then secondly, I'm going to read a quote from a 2009 article in The World. I read it back in January at this meeting, but it's from Bob Main. It was the first year you were commissioner, and it says, I'm not happy with the 78 or 97 bed capacity. I don't like turning people loose when they should be incarcerated. The most important thing for society is protection. That would be the last thing I would cut.
Yep.
And back in January, you said you still stand by that statement. However, at a meeting, a couple meetings back, Commissioner Rod Taylor proposed a 20% pay cut, an advisory to the compensation committee, and you were vehemently opposed to it. You were opposed to the structure of it. You were also asked by myself if you were opposed just simply to not having that 20% of your salary. You said, no, you want that money. You said you deserve, or I'm going to paraphrase, but you and John Sweet agreed that you guys deserve that money. And it's just interesting to me because you, again in this article, says that would be the last thing I would cut, but you're not willing to cut your own salary.
Actually, what
which
I
does
said
come out of
was,
the general fund.
is it setting a precedent of telling the compensation committee
Right.
how to do whatever salaries. We've never done that before, and I don't want to start that again.
I understand that argument, and I stood up here, you can rewatch the video from the meeting, and I asked you, regardless of that argument, do you support a pay decrease? And you said no. So you're unwilling to cut your own salary, which comes out of the general fund, but you would be willing in the incidents that this levy does not pass, you are willing to cut public safety. It's just a contradiction to me, but I'm not one of your voters that you need to explain that to. But I don't want to just stand up here and complain. I want to give you guys a suggestion. I would suggest, and you can do this now or the next time you guys present a levy if it fails, but if you guys added a fee waiver on people's property tax statements, or another insert in their property tax bill, a fee waiver for this levy. It would allow people to fill it out and write a couple sentences explaining why they do not want to pay this extra levy, and you would waive it. And it would allow the people
You don't have that authority.
You absolutely could. Anyway, so it would allow the people who want this levy to pay it. They can pay it on their property tax bill. I mean, in reality, anybody who wants this levy can donate it to the sheriff's office today. They could write a check and pay it themselves. So what this levy really isn't It's not a question of whether people support public safety. It's a question of whether people support the idea that you can force your neighbor to pay for something that you want to pay for and can already pay for on your own. So it's a forcing your neighbor to pay for something that they might not agree with. So adding a fee waiver in with people's property tax to allow them the opportunity to explain that they have a financial hardship, or that they just simply disagree with the process and the system, or maybe they even disagree with public safety, I have no idea, but it would allow them the capacity to opt out of that fee, and it would allow people to still pay the fee who want to. Sure, you're not gonna get the whole 5.7 you need, you're gonna get like 3 million or something, because a lot of people would take you up on that offer to waive the fee, but you get the money to fund the jail, because from my calculation, you're only using about 3.2 million out of those money for the jail and the DA. It's 3,160,000. So I think you could get that if you added a fee waiver, because I'd say, yeah, about 2/3 the county would still pay it. So that's just a suggestion I had. You're gonna say you can't do it, but you absolutely can. So I urge you to do that, because I think that would actually work.
In your opinion.
Sure.
Yeah.
Opinions are like, thank you.
All right, thank you, Chris. Tim Pierce.
Tim Pierce, Bandon, Oregon. A little good news first. The governor of New York canceled not 1, 2, but 3 major offshore windmill projects last week because they weren't practical.
Right.
Good.
Yeah, so
Kathy Hochul.
this is
Who would've
something that
thought?
needs to be really broached with the weasels that are trying to cram this stuff down our throat here. Not only that, these windmills are made in communist red China, and there's only one thing we should be doing with those people.
Yeah.
I spent a year of my life trying to do it.
About 60% of the
Best my
about 60% of the windmills are made in China.
Yep.
Others, different places in the world.
And they're high maintenance.
But 95% of all the old tanks are made in China.
Yep. And that's the other problem there. And you know, that comes back to the container thing there. The lion's share of what's going to come here is going to be stuff made in communist red China, flooding our market. Just like you go to Walmart and all these places, and there's all stuff made in China. They're just flooding our stuff, and we're helping them by doing this. And the third thing was a thing called a resume. Commissioner Sweet said you can't really totally judge the port by their past performance. Well, when you hire somebody, you get a resume from them, and that's pretty much what you hire them by, is their past performance. Now, I own several fine quality pieces of the Crossline Ferry, and anybody who's been around Coos County for a while knows about the Crossline Ferry. And that kind of epitomizes the port's functioning. I own both the engine room telegraphs and both the wheels and wheel stands out of it. I barely missed the wheelhouse telegraphs, and the wife wouldn't let me buy the air horn to put on the roof. So half of Coos County would have known we had company. But anyway, the port's really, I don't know. I stand back and watch. When I was in the military, part of what we trained in was railroad maintenance. I was in a pavement maintenance more than anything else, and building airstrips and stuff. But we did the railroad thing, and this railroad thing, I just laugh at it. It is terrible. It is unsafe. There's places when I come onto the 4-lane coming from Bandon where the track wee-waws like this and goes up and down, and it's been doing that for years. They keep jacking it up, throwing a little ballast, that's what they call the gravel, under it, and within months it's down again. There's a problem there, obviously, underneath there, but they just keep, this typical government entity just keep throwing stuff in the hole, you know, instead of fixing it. Anyway, I don't think the port would do us any favors by doing this container thing. I have a gut feeling somehow or other that we, the people, would get screwed, blued, and tattooed on this deal. It's kind of like Nucor. Remember Nucor Steel? You know what I used to ask people? How many unemployed steel workers do we have in Coos County? And they go, well, none. And I said, will you bring Nucor in here? We'll have some. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on a comment about the windmills. My wife and I, a couple of weeks ago, drove by a field of these very large windmills that are of the size that they're talking about putting out here, but these are mounted on land. And one feature of this field is you can drive very close by it. And another feature of it is that the majority of those windmills have big, massive oil stains all the way down their column. And those things leak a lot of oil, you can tell. And you think about how much lubricant would be required in this mechanism that supports these massive blades and spins at that speed. It's a lot. So it's a significant environmental risk.
So how
right
do they
there.
contain the oil if they're out in the ocean?
Well, that's the point, isn't it? Anybody who did not sign up but wishes to comment? Okay, seeing nobody. Thank you all for being here. We're adjourned.